Hello, hello. Welcome back to Rise to Her and happy freaking Monday. I am so glad that you're here. If you are new, welcome. I'm glad the algorithm or a friend or just pure divine timing has brought you here today. And if you've been rocking with me for a while, you already know what Mondays are about. We pull an archetype card, we sit with the energy that is present for the week, and we figure out how to work with the energy around us. So think about this as like an energy update for how you show up in your life, how you show up in your business, in your career, in your goals, where we go beyond the stories of limitations and we step into the full spectrum of what we are here to embody. And this is about not just understanding the energy, but actually becoming a part of it. And I know that sounds kind of quippy in a way, but that is something I teach every time I'm working with a leader or an entrepreneur is how to begin to connect with something that goes beyond the 3D that we experience here. So let's get into it. But before I drop the card, I just want to do a check-in with you for a second. How are you guys doing? The external world is wild right now. When I turn on social media, TV, I'm like, oh my God, not again, right? And so curious, how are you doing? Can you just answer? You can even answer me out loud. But how are you doing? How's your body feeling? What's on your mind? Take a deep breath with me. And if you guys, like me, have been feeling a little restless lately, a little antsy, I want you to know that the energy this week is going to speak directly to you, help you work with that antsy feeling, that I know I need to do this, but feeling. Okay, so the archetype for this week of April 13th is the seed. If you're watching on YouTube, you can look at the card right here, but I am going to spend some time describing what's on this card because the visual is another way that we read cards. So just like in tarot, the cards and the visuals symbolize part of the energy that is coming through, right? So if you're familiar with traditional tarot with like the 9 of swords or where people are looking up versus looking down, or maybe their body's covered versus more expansive, all of these visuals are giving you a clue into the layers of energy, because energy is something that is not just black or white. And we really love to put things in a very strict contrast. But when we learn to harness the expansive nature of what is energy, we can then tap into more than just who we think we are. Okay. So here we go. The card, the seed that we're working with this week. So at the center of the card here, there is a seed, is what I initially interpreted it as, just a seed. But not when I was looking closer, I was like, oh, that is a pearl. Like it was that shiny texture. And surrounding that pearl are these concentric, and surrounding that pearl are these rings. So they're circles after circle after circle, and they are radiating outward from the center. And so when I was first reading, and I record a voice memo as I'm doing these live readings and then put it together in a way that's succinct and tells a story. So as I was reading this card, I was thinking about the rings of a tree and how you can cut open a tree and read its entire life in those trees, like how long it's been around. You can look at where you've had really dry years, where you've had abundant years of rain, and you can look and even see when it got hit by something, when there's been a damage, right? But it still keeps growing outward. And so every ring is a story, is a part of who we are and how we're showing up in the world. And every ring, just like why I teach seasonal living and these ancient wisdom practices, is that these rings are seasons and we are cyclical in nature. You are not there to just be on all the time. And when you can learn to embody these various phases and aspects of self, I can guarantee you you're going to be able to achieve your goals more quickly, more efficiently, and with a lot more ease than you have in the past. And so the circles here are representing the various seasons of you and all of the stories that have culminated. They are your experiences and the full accumulation of everything that's happened through you, to you, and despite you. Despite when you've tried to self-sabotage or tried to push away the goodness, right? And the energy of the seed archetype is asking you to look at all of those rings, all of those experiences completely different this week. They are not just evidence that things are hard or, oh, you're just a tough one that's, you've been really resilient, right? But they are conditions that have been pulling you towards the thing that you are here to plant. They have been initiations. And I am a firm believer, after spending years working in trauma work, working in suicide prevention work, and still in the clinical research space, that these experiences, they can either, one, create a film that discolors the world and puts and hardens you and says like nothing's good and that is what you will continue to perpetuate, or we can use them as full initiations and take back our power. And that is not to say that what happened was not hard, was not incredibly traumatic, but this is just like a girl who's been through a lot of shit to another human who's been through their own shit saying, how are we going to choose to step into your power? How are we going to use that to be in our divine mission? Because everything, this is invitation, everything has been in service of the seed. What would change for you? And even as I say that, I'm like, damn, that's good, right? Because I forget a lot of what the reading is when I'm just like full channeling through it. And so when I go back through these notes, I'm like, dang, that's really good. It's landing with me again. So everything has been in service of the seed. How much more inspired, how much more light will the load become if you're like, it's been in service. It is crafted this warrior, this god and goddess. When I was reading the guidebook that comes with Kim Kranz's deck, and it says there that the seed stirs you, and that stirring results in this antsy, impatient feeling. So I want to ask you directly and take a moment to think about this. What is agitating you right now? What is triggering you? What keeps nudging at you, that thing that you're like circling back to all the time? Like the moment when you put down your phone, or maybe you're scrolling on the algorithm and everything is reminding you of that thing that won't leave you alone. I want you to pay attention to that, because that agitation does not have to be a problem, right? So when I went back to CrossFit on Monday, the few days before that, I was like, oh my God, I have got to get to the gym. I've had some health issues come up in the past year and a half, and they have, in the last month or two, have been really kicking my butt. So I had to take 2 weeks off of going to the gym. I promise this story has a point. And so I took those 2 weeks off. I really deeply needed to rest. But then come like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I was like, whoa, I am feeling a lot more anxiety than I typically do. Wow, my body actually hurts right now, but I didn't work out. It's sore. And it was because I had been sitting too long and I hadn't been using the energy, and I wasn't able to write the scripts for the podcast like I normally do. I wasn't channeling different content to put out. And it was because I had so much energy that it had been bottled up, and in my field, it had just become distorted and cluttered. We've talked about that in the past. And so it needed somewhere to go, right? It was the prana. It was the life force that was trying to move through me, and it needed a place to go. And that was going back and working out, lifting weights, and going on a run. Okay. And so how this translates here is this antsiness that you've been feeling maybe about your income, your product, your career. That's the seed pressing against its own shell. That is the life force that is trying to move through you, just like it did for me, right? This was like a physical energy that needed to come through. I put on my Instagram story the other day, like the fastest way to get clarity for me has been just to go on a walk. If I'm feeling stuck about how creative I can be or what content I can put out, I go on a walk. And that allows the energy to fully go through me. I am a living being, and so is the trees, the plants, right? Those are all things that are radiating energy. And when I get stuck in my own story, I keep everything stagnant, but it wants to desperately move. And so some of what is agitating you, listener, is asking you to go deeper. It's asking you to process something that has not been fully processed. It's asking you to grieve something, maybe to metabolize an experience that's still living in your body as that tightness, as that anxiety, as that avoidance, as that low grade anxiety that you're like, God, I don't know why I feel like this. And some of it is actually calling you to move forward. So some is asking to go deeper and to process it. So alchemize it. And then some of it is asking you to move forward. It's that edge of your growth that is asking you to say, you just got to take the step. And both are so valid. Both are very sacred, but they require completely different responses, and only you know which one is which. So this week, when you feel that agitation rise up, I want you to ask yourself, is this asking me to tend to the land, or is this asking me to take action? I'm going to say that again. When this agitation inevitably comes up, because that is the energy that we're working with this week, is it asking me to tend? Maybe go deeper, tend the soil. Just like when you are planting your garden, I've used this analogy a lot recently because we're in the spring energy, and we work with the wheel of the year inside of Rooted with my seasonal living and ancient wisdom membership for deep spiritual, purpose-driven entrepreneurs and leaders to learn how to work with their energy so that they can achieve their goals in a way that doesn't burn them out. We've been talking a lot about this energy of planting, and when we're tending a field, that's like tilling it. I remember growing up, my dad had this tiller for our garden that he would let me do, and it was actually really fun. And it's like ripping up the dirt to go beneath it to get the roots. We have a raised garden bed in our front yard where we have all of our garden stuff. And there's one bed that continually just gets overrun with weeds. And the other day I was like, we're going to have to tear up the entire thing. We're going to have to go to the root and get it up, sit with it and process it and remove it. Okay. And not like, oh, I'm so mad, I just need to freaking rip this out, because then that's going to throw my soil everywhere and it's going to get really messy, right? Instead of like, oh, I can go in there and I can dig through it and then I can actually take up the root instead of losing all the soil in the process. So that is the tending, the going deeper, the processing, the grieving, the metabolizing, the alchemizing. I love the word alchemize. I've been using that a lot recently. Or on the other hand is the action step. Take action, move forward, do the thing, move the energy outward. Which one is it? Hey there. If your body keeps asking for a different pace than your life allows, if you're moving through the year without clear moments to pause, reflect, or reset, if your intuition keeps whispering and you keep overriding it, Rooted was created for you. Rooted is a seasonal living membership for people who want a more ritualized, spiritually connected way of life, one that actually supports the work and impact they care about. Inside of Rooted, you learn how to live in rhythm with the wheel of the year, when to initiate, when to tend, when to rest, when to release, so your energy stays intact instead of slowly wearing thin. You'll explore your soul contract, work with energetics, and build practices that help your intuition guide your decision, not just inspire them. You get access to workshops like Shadow Work Portal, the Portal of Joy, and the Soul Contract Workshop, along with a growing vault of meditation and somatic practices this community returns to again and again. We gather for live full moon magic calls, coaching sessions with me, and weekly integration prompts to help you stay anchored in the season you're actually in. Rooted is available at a special pricing. You can join for less than $1 a day. Rooted is for the curious, for those who want to stay devoted to their work without losing themselves in it. You can join at www.risetoher.com/rooted, or you'll find the link to join in the show notes. I'll see you inside. Okay, let's talk about another aspect of the seed archetype. It is the part of the reading that I think a lot of entrepreneurs and leaders need to hear today. You can have one of the most powerful visions in the world. And I mean, like, one of the most powerful, emotional, like, truly deep desired goal and vision for your business, your career, your life, your big mission. You can have the clearest sense of purpose. You can have a really freaking aligned offer, the most magnetic messaging. We see that all over Instagram. And if the soil is not fertile, if you, the human being, are not resourced, that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, nothing will grow the way that it's meant to. So the seed is going to ask us to go back to the basics again this week. This comes up all the time when I'm working with clients. You want to increase to your next level? You want to get that multi-six figures? You want to finally make money in your business? You want to finally be able to work with that employee that you hired that's been really stressing you out and not feel like you just want to up and quit or yell at them? Well, you need to really make sure you're nourished, because yes, you're divine, baby, but you are human and you have to tend to that body. So these are real basics here. What is your physical form existing in right now? How are you eating? How are you sleeping? How are you actually nourishing yourself? Because in order for that seed to plant, we have to put in the right conditionings. This is just how nature works. We are nature. And beyond the physical, there is a deeper level to this. What experiences have you been carrying that have not been fully alchemized or processed? Because life happens really freaking fast. Things happen quickly. And sometimes we have not had the space or capacity to fully metabolize an experience before the next one happens to us. And when that happens, right, there's times in our life that things are just really, really freaking fast. But as we try to up level, grow, heal, those things will start to pop up. They will start to become present. I was working with a client who was like, I just feel like I can't get ahead. I was like, oh, but baby, let's reflect on that. Let's look at how far you've come. But now your body is saying, oh my God, thank God there's space here. Can you heal this? Can you let this go? Can you alchemize this? Because when we don't do that, it stays residual. It becomes embedded in our soil, in our energetic field, and becomes dense. And so when you try to create a new garden, a new beginning, that new chapter, that goal that you are calling in your business or your life, but you're doing it in a soil that hasn't been tilled yet, that unprocessed stuff is still there. It's still taking up space, and it's still competing with what you're trying to grow, because your capacity isn't able to hold it because it's already holding on to something else, that belief, that story. So tilling the soil, here's what that could look like. Maybe that looks like finally having a conversation that you've been avoiding. Maybe it looks like going to therapy. Maybe it looks like doing some somatic work. For me, that's like getting into the feminine, sensual parts of my body that feel really uncomfortable for me sometimes. That has been my growth edge of tilling the soil, of undoing this really patriarchal, colonized way of being in my body. It's been seeing where I still have all of that conditioning present, because that has come up as I've reached my growth edge. For some of you, it might look like giving yourself actual rest. And I mean, like, actually laying there and resting, maybe doing some breath work, maybe just going on a walk without working or without saying, oh, I need to hit this pace. Just feeling the sun on your face and utilizing this rest as a practice, as a preparation of just being. This is what it takes to be a good farmer. There's been so much goodness that's come ancient as I've begun to study the ancient traditions in the wheel of the year and these pagan traditions of connecting back with nature. And I want to flag that if you're like, pagan traditions, what in the hell? Well, if you're new here, then maybe that will shock you. But if you've been around for a while, you know that I love bringing up the witchiness that is within all of us healers, space holders, leaders. Even if you're in the most corporate position ever, we have that within us, and that is the connection to our power. And that the pagan will of the year is when they were connecting back with nature, but it just got demonized by the church. That's why I love studying history too, and why I've dug in so deep into it. And it was taking our power away to connect with divine and putting the church in as an intermediary. And so sometimes just approaching it from this farming context can like help people process it, but it's all connected. So this is about being a good farmer, being good and connected with the land. But before we wrap up, we have to talk about the shadow. We have to talk about the shadow of the seed, because in every archetype, there is the light and the dark. Not dark as in bad, but dark as in like hidden away, rejected, becomes buried. And especially if you're an entrepreneur or a creative who has been conditioned to worship the outcome, the shadow of the seed is expecting the flower before you've done the underground work. It's pulling the sprout up by the root because you can't see it growing fast enough. It is declaring, well, that's a freaking failure. Well, I didn't do it. When it's actually in that germination phase underground. It's like that automatic expectation that things will be immediate, that immediate gratification. There was a study done, maybe at Stanford. I remember studying it when I was getting my master's degree, and it was a longitudinal study where they studied children, and they said, okay, I believe it was a marshmallow or some type of treat. They put it in front of them and said, well, if you wait X amount of minutes, you'll end up getting like 10 marshmallows. But if not, you can eat it right now, but you won't get any more marshmallows. And then they studied the kids that could wait for the gratification till later. And then the ones who were like traditionally successful or could put in the hard work or said they achieved their goals down the line over X number of years. I can't exactly remember. And what they found is that the kids that could wait and didn't need that immediate gratification were more likely to have achieved their goals later on. And that is not to say that you how you reacted as a child and needing that immediate gratification, or even maybe this dopamine addiction that we all have from scrolling our phones and getting a new input every 3 seconds. That's not to say that that is your predictor. But if it is your story and is your automatic response, then to achieve that next goal, you've got to become aware of that. Everything that I teach is in a 3-stage model: awareness, awakening, reclaiming. And when we're in that awareness space, we have to start becoming aware of the stories that are running our lives and that have currently created our conditions. And when we become aware of that, we can then awaken into what is possible. Why working with these archetypes awakens you into other storylines that you can tap into. And then day by day, we reclaim by making the decision, the action, moving beyond the body, beyond the emotions, and stepping into the divine aspects of self, not just this limited viewpoint of who we are. And so the shadow of the seed is this disconnected energy that ignores the cyclical nature of things. So the shadow of this disconnected energy that ignores the cyclical nature of things, of earth, of Pachamama, of our own life. And we do it because we live in a culture that celebrates the harvest and has almost no reverence for the in-between. If you want to start practicing this, a really beautiful way is before you eat your food, I want you to take 10, 15 seconds and think about all the energy that it took for you to receive that food on your plate. Begin to connect with what it takes to get that freaking broccoli from the seed to the harvest to your plate. All of those things, the farmers, the energy. But the seed archetype is reminding us where the real work is. The seed energy is doing the work before you see the sprout. It's that perseverance, but not the, like, I need to grind myself into the ground, but one that is, and I hate using this word because it sounds really AI and I don't mean it that way, but steady, like consistently showing up. Like, okay, I'm going to trust in this vision and I'm going to show up each day. And it's about having faith in that vision to keep tending each day, utilizing your energy in a way instead of just like, oh, well, it's not working, I'm giving up, or getting distracted by shiny object syndrome. And with this seed card, this duality and oneness came through at the same time. So duality of we can hold both and that we are all one. So we are always the seed and always the fruit at the same time. There is no final destination when you arrive. When you're done becoming this healed version of yourself, this highest version, right? Rising to the highest self is a day by day experience of just remembering your divinity. The ending and the beginning are always happening together. So I want you to stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting to arrive to that somewhere. The journey is part of it, baby. It is the thing we are experiencing. But I saved my favorite part of this for last. So let's go back to the image on the card, because the seed at the center, we told you it was a pearl. But how do pearls form? A grain of sand, an irritant, something foreign that got in where it was not supposed to be. It gets inside of the oyster. And so instead of expelling the irritant, the grain of sand, the oyster just begins to coat it. It starts to go layer by layer by layer, and over time and under that pressure until that irritant becomes something rare, becomes something beautiful, irreplaceable. So I want to ask you, what is your grain of sand? What is the thing in your story that you've been trying to outrun, to fix about yourself, to hide, to make sense of? What is that wound, the failure, the season that broke you wide open? I talk about mine a lot. That maybe you're still carrying some shame or confusion around. And shame is the lowest on the energetic vibration scale. So when we can just start to shine some light on it, we take away that density, because the seed archetype is telling us that is your pearl in formation. Your experiences, all of those rings on the card, they are not evidence that you're not going to do this, or that you're broken, or that you don't follow through, or that you had this thing about you that doesn't allow you to get things done. No, they are the layering. They are the record of a life that is being lived, that has depth, that says you're a human. And over time, that life, that experience, it becomes deep treasure if you choose to utilize it that way. Or you can choose to expel it and get rid of what could be precious and rare. And that thing, that treasure, that gets to become the thing that makes your work, your voice, your offering, your mission and vision yours in a way that nobody else can replace. But you have to let it form. You cannot rush this coating process that the oyster does to make the pearl. You cannot will the pearl into existence, right? You have to allow it. You have to allow it. All right, let's bring this home with how to work with this energy. But before that, I want to say that we take this deeper and we integrate it among community of like-minded entrepreneurs, leaders, professionals, and creatives inside of Rooted. You can join with a 7-day free trial where you get access to integration prompts for these archetypal readings. So that's going to be rituals and prompts where you can integrate that deeper into your life, business, career, and vision. And then we explore that deeper with voice notes, with seasonal workshops, and integration vault, where I give you a practice of, okay, these are the meditations, these are the somatic practices that you can use to accompany this energy. It's a full growing library. It's absolutely beautiful. But yeah, you can get started with a 7-day free trial, and then it's just $27 a month. And we do live calls. You get access to all of the workshops, all of the previous coaching calls, the integration vault. It's pretty badass. Okay, so here's how you're going to work with this in addition to being a part of the Rooted and doing those deep integration prompts and rituals that apply to your life specifically. But first, I want you to sit with your agitation. I want you to begin to become aware of what is stirring you. And then I want you to ask the discernment question. Is this calling me to go deeper and process something, or is it calling me to move forward and act? This is where we have to start to reiterate what it feels like to know. Last week, we talked about the inner flame. That's that deep knowing, that internal truth. And if you're like, how do I know? Well, begin to experiment with it. Begin to ask the question. And then finally, I want you to do a soil check. I want you to be honest with yourself. Are you actually resourced enough to grow what you're trying to build? And if not, no shame, baby. Welcome to being human. So what is one thing you can do this week to nourish the ground? And finally, I want you to honor your rings. 5 minutes, just reflect over your experiences. See if you can do that without judgment or criticism. But can you start to see the signs and the synchronicities? Can you see how even the hard stuff was pulling you towards what you're here to plant? I know mine was. I know every client that I've worked with has been pulling them. The seed archetype this week is asking you to trust the process you're inside of. It's not asking you to have it all figured out. It wants you to trust, even when, and especially when you can't see what's growing yet. Do the work before you see the flower. Till the soil. Let the pearl form. And remember, you are always the seed and always the fruit, both at the same time. That is the full spectrum. That is the nature of the cycle. And you are a part of it. You are in the cycle. Thanks for rising with me today. I'll see you back here next Monday. Until then, keep planting, keep tending, and trust what is underground, baby. It is going to be so good. Bye for now. Thank you so much for being here, for listening, reflecting, and rising into more of who you really are. If this episode sparked something inside of you or reminded you you're not alone, then you're exactly where you're meant to be. To keep the conversation going, come hang out with me on Instagram @RiseToHer. I always love hearing what's resonating for you. And if you're craving a space to explore intuitive, soul-led living with others who get it, our community is growing and you're always welcome. Until next time, trust yourself, honor your rhythm, and keep rising.